Hey guys, welcome to HIPHUGHES History. We're going to hit you up with a little bit of the political science, talking about the 1939 Hatch Act, a law that's designed to protect federal employees from undue political pressure in their jobs, as well as to protect America from partisan activity going on in the federal workforce. So let's see if we can't go giddy up for the learning and wrap our heads around the Hatch Act. I really want a backdrop. I want to travel back to 1939, and I think I will in a moment. But first, let's lay out the foundations of the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act really has two purposes. Number one, it's meant to protect federal employees, that their jobs aren't going to be held over their heads because of their political activities. You can't use somebody's political affiliations to hire them or fire them. That's number one. And then it's really to protect the system itself, to make sure that federal administrations, agencies, employees aren't using their jobs to unduly affect the political system. In a sense, the post office should kind of be nonpartisan. So should the FBI, so should the CIA, so should all federal offices.
Note, the President and the Vice President are exempt from the Hatch Act.
Now, federal employees, the bulk of them, the majority of them are going to fall under 5 regulations, and a few are going to get some extra regulations. But the big 5 when it comes to the Hatch Act, number one, this is the most important one, you can't use your office to affect elections. Now, this is where James Comey comes into lens, and there are 2 sides to this, but of course he's the FBI director. Just a couple days ago, he informed Congress that they had found some emails on Anthony Weiner's computer. Now, his wife, his ex-wife, I guess now, is a close aide to Hillary Clinton. They're in the process of going through those emails to see if there's any connection to the private server that they've already investigated and cleared Hillary Clinton for. Now, there are some, and they have charged James Comey, at least the case is going to go in front of eyes now, that he has violated the Hatch Act because he should be investigating in private. You don't have to go tell Congress everything. And then Congress is going to use it in a partisan way. There's others that are saying that he was just doing his job. If it influenced the election, that's just the course of the investigation. But that's number one. You can't influence an election. Number 2, you can't solicit or accept campaign contributions. You can't use your office to go pony up for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. That's a big no-no. Number 3, sorry, brother, you can't run for office. That's right. If you're a federal employee, if it's a partisan election with political parties, you can't throw your hat in the ring. That's why there's no FBI agents running for mayor of Blazuka, Missouri. It can't happen. You'd have to quit your job first. Number 4, you can't encourage or discourage political activity using your job in terms of the business that's coming in front of you. So if I am, I don't know, a NASA contractor and I'm falling under the Hatch Act, I can't use my job to hire a contractor because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican. That's a big no-no. And finally, number 5, cinco, foomp. No political activity when you're on the job. You can't wear buttons, you can't be making phone calls, whether you're on the job, you're in the governmental office, you're in the governmental vehicle, you're on hours, you're in the official suit. You can't do it. Don't do it because you don't want to do it. All right, so that's the basic 5 regulations when it comes to federal employees. Now, there is another tier, a higher tier with more regulations. Generally, it comes to law enforcement, CIA, FBI, Secret Service. You can't even engage in political campaigning off the job at that point. So the restrictions are going to get a little bit tighter. But that's the very basics on the Hatch Act. Now let's go backdrop. I love backdropping because I get to go in time machines. So the Hatch Act is passed in 1939, and it's really passed because of a series of exposés in the newspaper about the 1938 elections, which were said, in a sense, to sound like Donald Trump, to be a little bit rigged. And this was because of political influence in some of the New Deal departments, specifically the WPA, the Works Progress Administration, that was run by a very close aide, friend of FDR, by the name of Harry Hopkins. Harry Hopkins is the head of the WPA. He's one of the main architects of the New Deal. He's FDR's right-hand man. Later, he's going to go on to really craft the Lend-Lease Act. So this is a huge figure in Democratic politics, and he's running his agency a little bit crooked, especially in some of these swing states like Kentucky and Pennsylvania. And these newspaper exposés were showing that the WPA local offices were really meddling in elections, that they were requiring campaign contributions of employees, that they were using political partisanship to hire and fire people. And this really falls under the idea that we really need a merit system, that people should be hired based on skill, not on political affiliation. And in 1939, there's first going to be an investigation of these newspaper articles, which was led by a Democrat by the name of Morris Shepard from Texas. He was the head of the Senate Committee on Campaign Expenditures, and they did a pretty exhaustive study of the WPA, and they came up really with inconclusive results. But this isn't going to stop this train of reform, and eventually it's going to be New Mexican Democratic Senator Carl Hatch that's going to get wide bipartisan support for the Hatch Act, named after himself. And I think that eventually FDR saw the writing on the wall, and he's going to fully wrap his arms around it and really kind of take ownership over it, saying, hey, look what we're doing. We're rooting politics out of the federal government. So that's where the 1939 Hatch Act comes from. It's the Merit Systems Protection Board that is the enforcer of the Hatch Act. Now, it's not all been smooth sailing. First, in 1973, we had a major Supreme Court challenge because there's federal employees that are saying, I'm not able to participate in politics because of the Hatch Act that you are getting in the way of my liberty. So in 1973, we get the National Association of Letter Carriers in a Supreme Court decision. They're going to lose 6-3. Now, there has been some reform to the Hatch Act. In 1993, Bill Clinton signed the Hatch Act Reform Amendment, which is going to loosen up a little bit of the restrictions in terms of most federal employees, and it's going to allow them to be involved in the political management of some political campaigns and political parties, but they're still not going to be able to run for office. And then in 2012, we get the Hatch Act Modernization Act signed by President Obama, which is going to, in a sense, release some state and local employees from some restrictions that weren't fully being funded by federal dollars. In the past, even if $1 came from the federal government, your state and local employees fell under the Hatch Act. We're also going to put a little bit of teeth in the law. President Obama is going to say, hey, brother, if you violate the Hatch Act, you can now lose your job. That's right, you're fired. So there you go, guys. Now you got the easy breezy on the Hatch Act, or if you want to get really official, it's called an act to prevent pernicious political activities. Whew! Got that one out. So what do you guys think about the Hatch Act, and specifically about FBI Director James Comey? Do you think that his decision to tell Congress about this newly found emails is violating the Hatch Act, that he's influencing an election? Or do you think hogwash, he's just doing his job? Leave it down in the comments below. And make sure that you go subscribe to HIPHUGHES History, because it's the right thing to do. And check out our reservoir. We have over 420 videos. It's a little bit cray-cray. And I'm going to tell you one more thing, because I tell everybody at the end of every lecture I ever give the same thing. Where attention goes, energy flows. We'll see you guys next time you press my buttons.